The really observant of you might notice that this is Tulse Station and not a bus.
Got a ticket in my hand, it's time to take a ride. 2 pounds of journey heading down south this time. From the city lights to the countryside. On this journey.
And here we are on part 3, the final part of my £2 local bus journey. We've had delays, but I might have to call it off in today's episode as Storm Dara and traffic wreaks havoc on the south coast. Keep watching to find out what happens.
Challenge of traveling south through the fields and towns, either slow or fast, from the hustle and bustle to the peaceful grass. Every stop I make, it's a brand new location.
At the end of part 2, you saw me jumping on the Superloop 6. I'd been chucked off the bus in Trafalgar Square and had to take to foot over the Thames. I'd planned on catching the previous Superloop 6, but I was now running 20 minutes behind, and this was going to make things tight, but there'd be no problems, surely? London's rush hour traffic, however, ground to a halt, and while sitting on the bus I had a decision to make. I could sit in this traffic and likely miss all of my connections to my final destination tonight, or admit defeat and get off the bus. The really observant of you might notice that this is Tulse Station and not a bus. Oh dear. So I guess the main question is, why am I at a train station and not on a bus? So I had to jump off the Superloop. The driver let me off, although I had to press the emergency exit button. He couldn't let me off. Guessing it's an insurance thing. But yeah, so had to get off the Superloop because it was literally sitting in traffic and I was going to miss every single connection. So it's a bit of a fail. We're going to have to make a connection over to Crawley because otherwise we would miss the last bus to where I'm planning to go to, which would mean that I wouldn't be able to get my coach back tonight, which is frustrating. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're just going to count this as a bus replacement train. So we've heard of rail replacement buses, but this is the opposite. Because the bus isn't running, we're going to get the train instead. So hopefully we'll still get to where I want to go to tonight. If not, no, good, that's not my train. So we're going to get the train now to East Croydon. We'll then change there and go to Crawley. Bear with me. Let's go. While we sit here and stand here and wait for the East Croydon train, the bad news is that I've not eaten anything yet, so I'm very, very hungry. We've now got announcements for the different trains being delayed, playing over each other because there's so many trains delayed. I don't know what's happened today. Got very big buses down here in London. Look at this, this bus is massive. So the original plan was to have taken the SL6 at 15:59, which would have got us into Croydon at 17:08. Instead, we'll be taking the replacement train service operated by Southern on behalf of Go Ahead London. That's going to get us into Croydon at 17:43. And here we have our Class 377, or 377302 and 377319 to be specific. This bus, has all the mod cons such as power sockets, onboard announcements and the comfiest seats of the journey so far. We even have our first bus with air conditioning and an onboard toilet. Okay, not sure I can keep this up. It's a train. Trains are much better and much comfier than buses. But then this ticket just cost me £16 versus the £2 bus journeys I've been taking all day. Surprisingly, given all the delay announcements being played at the station, my train was actually bang on time, which bode well for my connection at Croydon, which I would need to make. So this train will call at Streatham, Streatham Common, Norbury, Thornton Heath, Selhurst and finally East Croydon. Taking just 22 minutes, will cover a distance of just 6 miles. I've always been a fan of the Class 377 Electrostars. They're really similar to the 170 Turbo Stars that I used to commute on in the Midlands. They offer a decent comfort of seat, they've now got USB power, and there's something quite comforting about the onboard announcements by Julie Berry. Thankfully the journey is pretty uneventful, and as we pull into East Croydon exactly on time, a quick look up at the departure board shows that my next bus replacement service is on time and due from another platform. Opting to jump in the lift as my legs are weary by this point, I find out that this lift is clearly wearier than I and only wants to visit the platform level. Whilst we're waiting for the lift to let me back out, I thought I'd take this moment to say a massive thank you to everyone who has liked and commented on the previous videos. There were some great suggestions of ways I could have avoided London, and when I attempt another journey south in the future, I think those hints will come in handy. I've also thought to myself that probably just getting the Superloop around London might have worked out better. I could have caught the SL10, then the SL9 and then the SL7 to get from Hendon to Croydon. That's one for next time. I also quite like the suggestion that James Power made to do a Superloop challenge. And so our next bus replacement train is from East Croydon down to Crawley. Leaving at 17:52, this is a train from London Victoria that we're picking up at East Croydon. Its final destination is Portsmouth Harbour for one part of the train and Bognor Regis for the other, with the conductor and automated voice repeatedly reminding passengers of this. We'll just be taking this as far as Crawley, stopping at Gatwick Airport, Three Bridges and then Crawley, and we'll be getting off before the split of the train in Horsham, so thankfully I don't need to worry about the announcements. In total, we'll be on here for just 30 minutes and cover a distance of 20 miles. Originally the plan was to have taken the Arriva 405 service at 17:32 to Redhill. That had got us in at 18:29. Then I would have took the 18:41 Metrobus 460 to Crawley, arriving at 19:19. So instead of two buses taking just short of 1 hour 45, we now have one train taking 30 minutes. And so I'll actually arrive into Crawley almost an hour ahead of schedule. But again, taking these two trains has cost £16 versus the buses at £6, and it also means my challenge was a fail. Okay, we've caught that bus replacement train and we're now in Crawley bus station. We're going to get the last bus of the day, which is the 271, that's going to get us down to Brighton for about 8:30. It was actually going to be about 9:30 had we connected on the bus, but the train has sped us forward an hour, which is brilliant. But obviously, had we not took the train, we would have not been able to make that connection, and we would have just been stuck going as far as we can from East Croydon, which is probably not that far at this time of night. As time dragged on and the 1840 departure to Brighton not arriving, a small gaggle of people congregated at the bus stop. With the rain starting to fall now, we almost developed a community spirit, letting newcomers to the group know how long we'd been waiting and how late the bus was. I'm on 271, I'm getting very wet now. Oh, it's the first bit of rain all day. Oh, what a shame. And it's chucking it down. That's the bus we would have got if we didn't get the train. The 460. This is about as much of Crawley as I've seen, but it's probably about as much as I want to see. It's wet. Very, very wet. Look at the rain. Being a hub for Metrobus, we saw endless buses pull in and then pull off, none of them seemingly wanting to make the trip down to Brighton. But now there's two of them turned up on the other side of the road. The driver of the bus has just told us that there is a Christmas fair somewhere along the route, and that's why the buses are delayed. And one of these two here is going to take us to Brighton in a minute. Perfect. In good news though, while we're waiting, I can connect to their Wi-Fi. So the update is it's still raining. The 271, two of them did turn up, one of them went away. We spoke to another driver. A woman has become the leader of our group, and apparently they had to take it back because it had a cracked screen, but he's on his way back. We are nearly an hour late though. Hiya mate, Brighton please. I think that lady there's coming for this bus as well. You coming on?
Yeah, thank you.
And so at 1935, our 1840 Metrobus 271 is ready to depart, a trusty 2015 ADL Enviro 200 single decker. This would be our companion for the next 90 minutes. The 271 is a pretty important service for a number of small villages and towns that we'll run through today. It's operated by Metrobus, who are part of the venerable Brighton and Hove Bus Company. We'll head to the amusingly named Pease Pottage, Handcross, Cuckford, Haywards Heath, Burgess Hill, World's End, Hassocks and finally Brighton. At times the 271 runs express with sections down vast dual carriageway, and others it's winding its way through little countryside villages. Sadly, all that can be seen from the windows this evening is darkness and rain. All in all, this journey will take us 90 minutes and will cover 29 miles. Storm Darrow was certainly starting to rear its head at this point. As the bus was being battered by wind, I rather belatedly looked at the weather report, and this is when I discovered that a weather warning had just been issued for the majority of the country, though thankfully not a red one for the route I was travelling. My originally planned bus was the 1935 272 Metro bus from Crawley to Brighton, but God knows what time that would have left considering this was an hour late itself, or in fairness whether it would have run at all this evening. So a bit of a behind the scenes moment, I do actually plan these trips out by using a mixture of travel line, bus operators' own websites and also poring over Google Maps myself looking for decent sized towns to jump between. Once I've decided on where I think I can get to, I then whack all the ideal routes into Excel and also add in some contingency routes for tight connections where I think it could come all a bit unstuck. So when I sat in traffic on the SL6 earlier, I was looking at my options, and the only other option I could see for me getting to Brighton was the 291 to Tunbridge Wells, which would have left at 2022, and then the 2157-29 bus to Brighton. But this would have left me excruciatingly close to when my National Express coach back to London was, and I just didn't want to chance it. So in reality, there was a chance I could have made it to Brighton without failing the challenge, and still use just local buses. But that may have led to a waste of the coach tickets back if I was too late, and being stuck and stranded in Brighton. And that would have meant the expense of trying to find a hotel room in Brighton on a wet and windy evening, and I just didn't want to go for that. Thank you, mate. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Brighton Pleasure Pier. The aim was to come here, go to the end of the pier, and literally complete that as I got to the bottom of the UK. The problem is, I didn't realise that Storm Dara was going to come and ruin things. So we have managed to get to the pier. I don't know how much of this you'll be able to hear because the wind is absolutely mental, but it's all closed up, so I'm not going to be able to go on it. I'm going to go find myself something to eat, try and dry out my shoes, because it is chilly and wet and windswept. But yeah, so here we are at the bottom of the UK in Brighton and Hove at the Pleasure Pit. You have to pay £1 to go on as well, but there's no lights on. However, if we look behind us, there is Brighton. And there we have it, folks. That brings us to the end of my challenge to see how far south I could get in one day just using local buses. This is the second real challenging journey series I've done, with the first being my trip up north. So if you've not watched that already, please go ahead and watch that three-parter. As I said at the end of that video, it's definitely not the quickest way to travel, and it's not the cheapest way to travel, and I guess as well it's not the comfiest way to travel. Getting back, I'll be taking 2 coaches that will get me home in just 5 hours and at a cost of just £15. But it is definitely one of the most interesting ways to travel. So my mind now turns to 2025 and what journeys I can make there. Hopefully ones with better views as the seasons change. There's east to west, and I really want to do one along the coast. We'll be up to £3, but I still think there's some great journeys out there to try. So like, subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. It really helps me out. And if you're thinking of getting on the bus to making a stupidly ridiculous journey, all I can say is go for it.